Well, good afternoon and welcome to this, the first of what we hope will be a series of seminars on labelling for high nature value farmland. My name is Gwyn Jones of the European Forum on Nature Conservation and Pastoralism, and this event is being funded by the Heritage Council in Ireland. We've been doing a bit of survey work for the European Environment Agency, and part of that's involved looking at labels and the importance of labels in different high nature value farming areas in Europe, and that varies a lot over the continent. And we get the strong perception that maybe especially people that are not farmers feel that this is a way to go for high nature value farming, and that it offers a lot of potential with increased customer perceptions of nature and the environment and climate. But I think we're also aware that there's a lot of problems involved with it. There's a lot of planning, a lot of technicalities to get over. And so we thought we'd start this series of seminars in which people who have a long experience of doing this kind of thing get the chance to talk to us and to answer our questions. And so the first of what we hope will be a long list of speakers is Anna Jamieson from Sweden. She can introduce herself and exactly who she works for and all this kind of thing. But I was thinking before the videoing started when I first heard her name, and it was at least 20 years ago, when some friends from Sweden brought over farmers to the northwest of Scotland, and some of them were already involved in this Naturbeteskött, natural pasture meat brand, that label that Anna has been working on for that much time and more. So it's a real pleasure really to give the floor to somebody that has such experience, and it'd be very interesting to hear what she has to say. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you very much, and for that glowing introduction. I have prepared a little PowerPoint slide show as well, so I think I have the permission to share my screen, but I can start by just saying thank you for allowing me to be part of this network and to talk to you about my favorite topic, I guess we can say, because just like Gwyn said, I've been at this for a long time, 20 plus years now, and I can tell you, even if I feel that I'm maybe going to give you quite a positive picture of labeling HNV practices today, I have seen plenty of failure so I have the full experience. We'll see if I can get my pictures up. There.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's coming along, and then I press. There we go, I think. Right, so yeah, the picture here almost brings a little tear to my eye, because it's the farm that we have just left. We've been farmers for 30 years, and we have now entered another stage of life, and where we're not going to be our own farmers anymore. But this is the kind of farmland that I have been farming, and this is also a picture of me talking engagedly about how to manage it. I am the manager of an organization called the Swedish Pasture, Beef and Lamb Association. I'm also on the board of the Swedish Beef Cattle Producers Organization as vice chairman. But my passion lies in producing sustainable beef and lamb on lands like these. And because of that, I early on came in contact with WWF in Sweden, who has been working with these kind of farmers and lands for almost 30 years now. And it was through my contacts with WWF that I have had the pleasure to work with this topic ever since. I'm also a trained animal husbandry teacher, so I've worked with that, and I've been an advisor as well for beef and lamb producers, and I work as an author of textbooks for agriculture colleges and such. But a little bit about Sweden first, because to understand what we're doing, one has to sort of understand a little bit about what Sweden looks like. Sweden is mainly forest. I've tried to illustrate that by dabbling green onto the map, but it was a bit of a mess, I'm afraid. But so 70% of the land surface in Sweden is actually forest. It didn't used to always be forest, but it is now. A lot of old grazing lands have been planted up to forest, unfortunately. We have about 8% arable or cropland, together with intensive grasslands, which is part of the crop rotation. And when you then deduct the lakes and the rivers from what's left, we end up with roughly about 1% of the land area that is semi-natural pastures. It's 450,000 hectares roughly that are today managed HNV grasslands. And these lands lie like borderland between forest or water and the arable land. And they used to be grazing, some of them, but they also used to be the old forage croplands where the farmers went out to harvest rough grass and stuff for the winter feed, because all the arable land was needed to grow crops on. And by having been managed in this way for so long, and by animals and by people, these semi-natural pastures of Sweden have very, very high biodiversity. But all that stuff, I know that's all the rest of you are in this business. I don't have to go on so much about what that means for nature. But our organization was formed by WWF originally. We were sort of like an in-house organization working with helping farmers to produce beef on HNV grass. But within 5 years or so from forming, we became independent because it wasn't altogether easy to be working with beef and meat in general within an organization that started to have more and more of a perhaps vegetarian or vegan profile. So no shadow over WWF. They do a lot of very important work, but we've as an organization felt that we needed to be a little bit independent. So we broke loose but still with some economic support from WWF. But my organization today is open for anyone who's interested in beef and lamb production on high nature value grassland, and it doesn't cost much to be member. We don't function on membership fees. We only have around 60-70 members, and they pay to like 20 euros per year. But instead, what we do is that we chase up financing through projects. We run projects working with this issue. And at the moment, we have 3 different projects running. They can be research projects, or they can be farmers' union projects, often financed, of course, by the EU, because we have this strong profile of biodiversity and such. And what we actually do, apart from running the projects, are support farmers through the certification process. We also act as networks for industry, for shops, for slaughteries, for people who want to do business in this area. And we act as a knowledge bank for anyone who needs maybe a talk on the subject, or who's looking for papers and reports on this subject. And again, I don't need to maybe linger on this picture, but I do like this capture, and I like the 2 pictures together, because it's not the cow, it's the how. And of course, I'm referring to climate change issues and environmental issues so often blamed on cattle today, and we say that the problem isn't the numbers even of animals or the type of animals, it's the way they are being produced and farmed and what they are being fed that is the problem instead. And we base our core values that we communicate when it comes to the product very much on this picture as well. So that's why I think it's important to show it to you, even though I know you get it. We actually have had quite a long journey thinking about, is it taste we should lift up? Because we all know that animals that eat a varied diet develop a different and deeper flavor to the meat. Is it maybe the marbling of the beef? Our animals tend to live longer than intensively reared cattle, and of course hence also have a greater chance of marbling. Or is it the high level of animal welfare we can see on these pictures? I mean, who wouldn't want to be on the green grass rather than in the feedlots? But actually, at the very end, a PR company helped us refine our message and to focus on biodiversity. And this was 10 years ago. It was before biodiversity became the new black in the environmental discussions. So I'm very pleased that that happened and that we had these clever ladies helping us. They cost a lot of money, but they did help, because all those other things I lifted up, good animal welfare, good flavor, they can actually, and marbling, they can be produced by other people also if they do their homework and do their rearing properly. But when it comes to biodiversity, nobody can beat us, and you guys say the same. That's where we have our real shining star added value. And I think that's one of my first messages to you, that's what you should be lifting up. It's difficult to sort of figure out what is interesting to you, because you're a diverse group of people with your own challenges, and so as I said, you do realize that I'm here to sort of be a bit of a good example of somebody who's managed, and we did have a fantastic market breakthrough in the end, starting 2019 with our big cooperative food chain. But there was 20 years of heartache until then, I can tell you. And something that maybe I need to put on the table straight away is the fact that we as an organization, in one of the earlier pictures, you saw a nice little logo with a grass turf, and then it said Naturbeteskött on it. That's the organization, my association label. For a long time, we thought that maybe that would be the label on the meat as well. But it's not. Now when we have broken into the market, this is what the meat packages look like. And the operative label on these is the sun, the green and yellow sun coming up, where it says Naturbeteskött IP-sigill. Because what happened during this journey was that we decided to go with the third-party certification body called SIL, Swedish Seal of Quality, owned by the Farmers Union, but that's a different story. They are their own shareholding company as well. And we did that because for such a long time we tried to lift our own label. Nobody knew what it was. We also realized that certification is a big job, takes a lot of time, knowledge, and money, and we didn't have that in the association. We couldn't run our own third-party association certification scheme. So we went to the Swedish Seal of Quality and said, would you like to develop and have a part of your certification that deals with Naturbeteskött, pasture beef and lamb, beef and lamb? And they said, yes, please, that sounds like a good idea, actually. And then we worked on the criteria, what should be allowed and what should not be allowed, and hence, and I think around 2004 the certification scheme was ready to be launched. So that was a decision we took, rightly or wrongly, difficult to say, but there are many advantages by being with somebody else who does all the admin, all the heavy work that's running a third-party certification scheme means. So what happened then with Coop, and what had we done before that? Well, we tried in so many ways. We'd worked a lot with restaurants and told them all what a fantastic eating quality and storytelling they could have with Pasture beef. We had this guy that you sort of vaguely see up there smiling away. That's Torbjörn Eriksson. We sometimes call him Pasture beef Jesus, because he was so good at talking to everyone and getting everyone enthusiastic about this. But we didn't sell any meat. We were, so small on the market. There were hardly anyone interested, definitely not in certification, and we had like 20 members in the association and stuff. But time went on. We carried on through money from WWF, working a lot with politicians actually, and public procurement kitchens, and managed to get pasture beef into some of those kitchens and to be served to old people and on schools and things. And we did carry on working with the chefs, and we did manage to get a reputation through this. And then time went on. And by the time it was 2018, and I met the person responsible for beef in Coop, in this big supermarket chain, the time was sort of right. They needed some kind of top Swedish quality beef that wasn't organic. Organic had started to fail a little bit in Sweden. The volumes were going down. They needed something else. They needed something that could sort of counteract all the climate debate on beef. And we were there. They said, wow, why haven't we heard about this before? And I said, well, we've been trying. And it was a match made in heaven almost instantly, because they are big enough to be able to wait, to spend money on labeling, on making these lovely packages and running big adverts in their papers, but not having to have the payback straight away, because they're a national chain and they had the financial muscle. For us, we could have been swallowed up by a big monster and lost all our core values, but thanks to the fact that we from the start said, okay, we'll help you, we'll do everything we can, but it has to be certified through EPCL, to the seal of quality. Otherwise, we won't help you. And thank goodness, Coop said, okay, yeah, this is a prime product for us. Yeah, we don't mind it being third-party certified. And then they could wait, as I said, because then our job was to find farmers, help them through the certification process, try to hold on to the slaughtery so that they wouldn't rush off and sort of say, well, we'll take these animals as well, they're almost as good, it doesn't matter, does it? So we were sort of like watchdogs there and running around doing a lot of minding P's and Q's. And then it started coming out on the market 2019, 6 months after we decided to go ahead with them. And we're not making any money from this. We're not, because as you can see, our label isn't on these packages. We don't get anything for it, but it is the fulfillment of finally seeing our products in national supermarket chains. That's our payback. I wish I could invite you in for questions straight away, but I guess that Gwyn wants that at the end of the talk. So I'll try and get on. So what does it take to succeed like this? What is the key behind it? Because I do say that all the pasture beef sold today through Coop, and it's beginning to be, I think it's started on 10 animals per week. Now we're on 30 animals per week. They've been at it for 18 months. So it's growing slowly, but it's growing. It's got to do with credibility. It's a very strong label when you combine a word that we had worked so hard to make part of the Swedish vocabulary, Naturbeteskött, Naturbetesmark. We were in papers, we were in discussions, seminars. We'd done that for 20 years. We'd really paved the land for this. So with our endurance and the credibility through the third-party certification scheme. And then we also managed to put some project oil, meaning money, into this engine, because I could offer my time working with the farmers through other projects I had that paid for me to actually be out there advising and supporting these farmers. So it has to be a lot of luck. It has to be also a lot of endurance and economic endurance from a market actor that you can trust. And that's why I keep on coming back to this. So many times we've been told, why do you bother with third-party certification? It's expensive for the farmer. It's fussy for the market actor. The consumer hardly knows what it means anyway. And we've been sort of saying we're driven by the passion of actually doing some good in the environment, and hence we cannot let go of the fact that these animals must have been grazing on semi-natural pastures on HNV grasslands. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything to us. And I would say this is the proof of the pudding. I can be safe today thinking that it works. This model has worked. And the good thing is that now there are more companies out there, not just Coop, starting to do this. We have a plucky little local actor in Östergötland, where I used to live and where I've been running a project for 4 years, just finished it now. It's a local meat company, a family-run business, who also said, right, we want to do this. They were perhaps mainly interested in the first word on this meat package, östgöta, meaning that that it's local. It's local for the region, but they also wanted the third-party certification sign, because that was very important to them. And they actually stuck our organization label on as well. So and now we do have some meat that has the association logo on it, which is fun. But the main thing here was that through the project that we were running in the Östgöta region, we found a market actor that we could build trust with enough that they trusted us, that we knew what we're talking about. We trust them, that they don't do funny business with the meat and put something else in the packages. And they were willing to put the third-party certification brand label on, which safeguards the whole thing for me. We did have to put some money into that company. Don't tell the EU that, but we did in various ways. Working time mainly, not real money, but I think it was worth it, because you need the market actor. And that's my second advice to all of you who are working on the same sort of thing out there. You need to find and identify a market actor, a company of some kind that is selling, buying, an actual business that can take some economic risk, because there is economic risk in this. They will make money from this. They already are, these guys, But it took a while, it took a few months. In this case, it took a year for Coop to start making any money. So you need to find somebody who, for various reasons, is willing to take a bit of economic risk to get the whole thing going. Of course, we've had lots and lots of challenges along the way. I would say for the meat side, one of the biggest is the conservative and extremely slow to change meat producing industry. My goodness, they're conservative. You know, it's like volume in, volume out. Never mind what kind of meat it is, how it's been raised, what added values and specific values it has. They just want to sort of have it roaming through the slaughtery as fast as possible. It doesn't mean you can't find a slaughtery that's willing to work with you, but I've had problems with it. I find that they're good at killing and skinning the animal and sending it on to a cutting shop, and maybe that's their role, should stick to that. We've also had loads of farmer skepticism to this certification stuff. Why should we do it? Show us the money. It has to be worth something. And I've been a farmer myself. I know that we need to make money in order for this to be sustainable. Economic sustainability is as much a part of total sustainability as environmental and social sustainability. So this is true. Now, actually, just before this seminar, a farmer rang me and asked, what's this pasture beef stuff? Is it any good? Could I be part of it? And now I always say, find yourself a customer, find a slaughtery or somebody else who will say, I'm really interested in this, I want to buy it, this is how much money I will pay, so that you can make the calculus. Will it pay off for me? So that's very important. The farmers do need to realize some of this added value in form of money, otherwise it's not going to work. For those of you who are still in the EU, which is most of you, the ever-changing and unpredictable EU policies are causing so much riot, and we're right in the middle of the worst period now when nobody knows what's going to happen, it seems. But yeah, this is has always been a problem and seem to be always will be a problem. But we are dependent on the public money that supports farmers who do this service also. So we has to lump it, like it and lump it. You know, we have to live with this and try and see the added value through the product as a bit of a buffer, a bit of a sort of cushioning against the changes that will still happen for the grants, I think, to support the EU support system. And then we have the battle with the consumers on cattle as being the drivers of climate change. But I do say and believe that things are changing a little bit. I think even environmentalists are now seeing that it is the fossil fuel situation, the usage of fossil fuels, that is the main driver of climate change, not the burping cows. Methane has a much shorter cycle. If it stays the same, is the new message now. If we have a equal emission of methane, that doesn't increase the temperature, increase anything. But we'll see where we go. And I also think there is, unfortunately, a fair bit of lack of knowledge of best practice when using grazing-based production systems out there. It has been forgotten in my country. Hopefully in your countries it's better, but some of the grazing practices have been forgotten, and we need new research, we need new advisory, we need a lot of help to be able to do this as best as possible, and in order to both make money from production and safeguard the biological values. So I think that I'm at my last slide, and that's my questions for the future. And it'll be interesting to follow these seminars and discussions on this and see if there's any suggestions or hints I can pick up, because I want to include dairy farms and also lamb producers in the pasture beef added values, because the dairy replacement animals are doing just as much good for the HNV grasslands as the beef cows, and they don't get any part of that in their products. I also would like to raise the issue of what we have named as grass washing. Everyone knows what greenwashing is, but there is a lot of grass washing going on now, because the big market actors have realized that talking of grass raised or grazing and biodiversity, that's a new buzzword. Let's try and use that. So I must say, here in Sweden, people want to sort of plug all beef as being pasture beef, because there are semi-natural grasslands on almost every farm. So we can say that all farmers produce on semi-natural grasslands, and I of course say no. So I think this is something to really watch, because when something starts getting a bit hot, then people want to free run on it and steal basically the added values from us. So that's one thing I'm concerned about. And I also want to lift, and I think it could be relevant to a lot of you, when you have direct and farm gate sales, do you really need certification schemes? They are very expensive, and in my experience, when you sell direct from home, you tend to be maybe a little bit smaller. Is it possible on that kind of volume to get enough money to cover your certification costs? Or could we have some sort of other system that would guarantee these kind of operations? I do think it's an interesting issue, because there's a lot of trust when you have a farmer and you buy stuff from that farmer in him or her as a person, and maybe not so much in the certification scheme in that situation. And then I have a problem in my country. I don't know what it's like for you, but I have a problem with the interface with organic labels. Ours is called KRAV, and they are now actually saying that our rules, the KRAV rules, actually guarantee that their animals graze on HNV grasslands, and that's not true. So they are trying to nick our core values, and I don't like that. So I think it's a difficult area to maneuver in. I believe in the organic labeling and in the organic added values for environment, but obviously I get irritated when they try and steal our thunder, as it were. So I think I leave it at that, and I'm hoping for lots of questions from all of you. Oh yes, and I did put in the chat a link to a report that I was part of writing earlier on last year, actually, which deals with a lot of these issues also, labeling and certification and sustainable beef and lamb and how to do it and stuff. Yeah, so there we go, stop sharing.
Okay, tack så mycket. Very interesting. Yeah, lots to think about. I think the same as you about the personal selling, and I think it might apply also in some countries to butchers. There's a personal relationship with a butcher, and you trust the butcher, and the butcher puts up where the farm came from.
Yeah.
And then once you go above that scale, then you have to have an intermediary giving you the basis for trust, don't you? You can't do it on a personal knowledge basis.
No, exactly. Then you have to replace the personal trust.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have some questions. So the first and simplest of questions is what the number of farms is that's involved in this label.
You're right. Well, I think there's 70 farms at present certified. Some of them are quite large because they do, as I said, the majority of them go through Coop and deliver beef to them. And then 7 farms deliver to this small local regional one, and then there's a few that are just selling it themselves. But yeah.
Okay. And what are the main criteria that people have to obey?
Yeah, the certification is built like this, that we have a fairly broad rule book that is basic seal of quality for all beef and dairy actually also. And there you have things like if you do pest control, you have to do it responsibly. You know, it's not organic, it's all good practice in ordinary farming style. So all that stuff is there. Health controls of your animals, you have to keep your feed safe and all that sort of stuff. But then the actual HNV criteria are very simple. The farm must, the grassland on the grazing on the farm must be at least 50% HNV grassland. The animals must be on that land for at least 50% of the grazing period. It varies in Sweden, it's such a long country, but roughly 3 months is the grazing period here. We don't allow any soy in any feed that isn't certified. And most of our animals don't get any soy. Obviously, they don't need to, but it has come in because dairy calves born in dairy herds, they get pellets when they're young because they're not on their mums. And then there can be some certified soy in those calf pellets. So basically that's it. And then we do not have any bulls. We're still very stubborn about that. No bulls in the certification scheme. It's all just heifers, bullocks, young cows, and older cows too, because we think the older cows are the real stars. They've done so much good work, and they also produce really good beef for restaurants and stuff.
So just to clarify, it's the HNV land. This is the land that the National Grassland Survey or whatever in Sweden has identified. So you have a good map of that, don't you, in Sweden? We
do have a good map about it, but we actually had to create our own definition a few years ago for various reasons. But we have now said that it's grasslands that have been managed without any chemical, any improvement, anything like that for at least 20 years. Okay. That was quite a big shift from what we had originally, but we could see when we looked at surveys and maps and things that it was okay to make that change, because we need the lower value grazings as well as the core areas. The core areas where the really high biological values are can become so isolated unless you allow the area around it where the animals can also graze, and you know, you have to make it practically possible for the farmers.
So you mentioned that the criteria cover the grazing period.
Yeah.
And in Sweden you have, well, for practical and legal reasons, you have a long non-grazing
long
period.
tabling, yes.
And so there's no control at all over that?
Yes, there is. Okay. They have to eat at least 70% roughage. I mean, we don't allow intensive grain feeding in the stables either. And they're not allowed to be on slats. They must be on whole floors. This is something that is changing in all of Sweden, but we're in the head of that, which I'm quite proud of, because it's not a very nice system for the cattle. So yes, we do. I mean, there are things like this, and you can buy in feed, but you must buy it from other certified farms. Not 100%. You can buy some silage or straw from other farmers if need be. But so there are absolutely, and in this, as I said, the base criteria booklet, that's mainly in the stables, but those criteria are the same for other seal of quality animals too. The only thing is that there are hardly any other seal of quality animals. It is mainly ours, actually. We're the ones who have brought on the whole certification system.
So to put one of the questions in the chat, so there's no control, for example, over the use of nitrogen for the silage, let's say, or
you're allowed to put nitrogen on the silage, and there are rules. You must, for instance, do, I don't know the word for that, when you test the soil for how the nutrients in it and stuff, you should do that to make sure you don't have too much of certain. So yes, but it's, as I said again, it's not organic, it's conventional farming, but conventional farming with a very environmental profile.
Okay.
So there are quite strict rules on how to deal with your sprayer if you need to spray off when you start a new lay, maybe after, you might want to take away some of the weeds. So you're allowed to do it, but it's very strict rules about what to use, how to clean the sprayer and all that sort of stuff.
Yannis is asking, are there any rules for animal breeds that are allowed within the breed?
Not other than the Swedish rules. We still maintain that Belgian blues are not allowed to be used in Swedish genetics and rearing, but that's the only. Otherwise, we allow everything we have in Sweden. We see wonderful meat quality on dairy steers, for instance. So, yeah. And anything goes.
Okay. One of the key things in a label, isn't it, is who you exclude, what the rules are for excluding people. So somebody was asking in the question, Hedvig, I think, how you are going to cope with this tendency towards greenwashing. I suppose that links to it. And I was wondering myself, who now is the guardian of this concept and this label? So is it now IPCL in effect, or do you still have some intellectual property in it or whatever,
Yeah, it is a very good question. And we do, because we're on what's called the criteria advisory panel. So we do control what goes in it. We're always asked, not permission, that would be maybe too strong a word, but we're certainly considered all the time, and that's also a question of trust, because that's not actually written down in any signed deal, but that is an issue of trust, I think, between us and EPCL.
Okay, and what are the criteria that are the ones farmers find most difficult to, what are the ones that really protect your brand, if you want to put it that way?
Yeah, and that's not the same, actually. The ones they find the hardest are always tend to be in this basic criteria book. Things like some farmers were really upset about the no slats, please. We want full whole floors, but that's going over. That's the people who have the old style buildings left. So I think we will be out of that soon. But it's what protects our brand is the amount of semi-natural grasslands that you actually run your animals on. That's what we'll never ever will go away from, and this is why I'm at the moment so angry with our organic certification organization Krav, because they were first with third-party certification schemes in Sweden 35-40 years ago, and they still now seem to think that you don't need to check the grazing, that it doesn't matter. It's not that, I don't get it, but so yeah, that is a threat, of course, that people will try and water that down and say it's fine. You just, if you look after what you have, that's fine. If the animals are on other intensive lays the rest of the time, never mind, at least you look after what you have, sort of thing. But it isn't for us. It needs to be real. And that's what I mentioned, these PR people who were so expensive, but made us realize that what our real core value is the biodiversity.
Yeah. Somebody's asking whether the products are sold all over Sweden.
Yep.
Or is there a regional focus?
It's all over Sweden, and I can tell you a funny story, because when Coop started rolling this out, the volume was quite small, and they had done really fantastic work getting the shopkeepers all around Sweden to be interested and keen to get it. And they send out their meat from Stockholm, and Sweden, as I said, is a very long country. So the first lorries to leave are always the ones that are aiming for the north, a long way up. So there's a small shop up in Piteå, which is sort of way up north, who is the biggest seller of pasture beef, because he always gets his order packed first, so he gets what he wants. The other guys has to go, yeah, sorry, you didn't get any this week, and yeah, we'll get a little bit. So it's very popular, and it's Coop has been saying, which is so good for us to hear, that the meat quality was so much better than they thought. So that was also a nice recognition for us.
And tells you a lot what they thought as well.
Yeah, exactly. But,
somebody's asking whether the products are seasonal, but I suppose everything is coping with the same seasons in Sweden with the...
Yeah, exactly. And when they started selling in Coop, the slaughtery, which is the biggest one in Sweden, Håkan, said, we're not going to be able to fulfill your needs in the summer because these animals are actually out working in the grazing stand. So I think Coop allowed to have no delivery for 2 weeks in the middle of the summer, which was good of them. And that's the kind of leeway that I'm trying to say that you need in order to succeed. But otherwise it seems to be coping, and it's no more seasonal than any other meat. No.
Okay. I don't know whether you can even answer this question, but it strikes me that in a lot of these things, it's a bit like the history of the universe. There's a set of rules, and you can see the rules, but then you go back to very close to the Big Bang, and you're not really sure what happens, what the rules are. There's quantum effects and all this kind of thing. Yeah. So it strikes me that what happened right at the start is interesting. And so what do you think the key things were right at the start that enabled a momentum to develop and the confidence in farmers to develop and all these kind of things?
At the very, very beginning, when WWF started working, they had the luck, I think, of having guys that Stefan and Ola and people like that, who understood the role of the farmer. And I can't stress it enough that if you want to be in this sort of business with conservation agriculture, you need your farmers. So you need to find out what makes them tick. What is your common ground? Because so many nature protection agencies and organizations around the world have alienated the farmers, and that's no good at all. So I think that's what the first luck and or cleverness or whatever the WWF managed to was to befriend farmers. They paid out support for fences, they paid support for building sheds for cattle and so on, and they also showed themselves to be really interested in the farming reality. Then when it came to the Big Bang with Coop and why that has worked, I think it's partly to do with the right person in the right place. The woman who was then in charge of beef sales, she's now in charge of all the fresh produce, which is a pity because she was more used to us when she could focus on the meat. She was brave enough and strong enough and long enough in the tooth by that time to sort of say, this is good, I believe in this, we can fix this, I trust Anna, she will help, we'll do this. Had she been sort of somebody else, she maybe would have faltered when people started saying, it's not going to be enough, they can't produce all year round, maybe, what's the quality going to be like? But she just stood strong, and I think those sort of people, which is a terrible advice to give, to how do you produce a person like that? But I think that's true.
Okay, well, we got one last question. Can you explain a bit more about the dairy issue? So what is the problem there? Is it that the proportion of land is too small, or that the breeds are not regarded well, or what's
no, it's like this. It's not a problem I have with the dairy. I did express myself badly. My problem is that I would like the dairy produce to also get their part of the shine. I want them to have. People don't know, I think, how many hectares of HNV grassland that the dairy animals graze. It's not the dairy cows. They're not there because they need better grass and more nutrition, and they need to be closer to the barns. It's the heifers and the dry cows.
Dry cows,
yeah. And they should. I would love to be able to work this into their labels, their brands, somehow, so that they get a share of this. I'm not sure how to do it though. They're very. I don't know. I'm working on it.
Maybe this also fits into Yannis's yet more last question here. So maybe you could explain to us actually how the marketing system works in Sweden. So if I have some fat bullocks to sell, does the co-op come to buy them directly from me, or do I take them to a slaughterhouse who buys them, or how does it work?
In most cases, especially the bigger national chains, they have a deal with the slaughtery, so it's the slaughtery that buys from you. And this is again why a third-party certification scheme is good, because the more chain members you have, the more difficult it can be to assure stuff. The local little brand with the 7 farms in Östergötland, there it's the butchering company, the meat company that actually makes the deal with you as a farmer, and then the slaughtery is only making a service. They're doing the job, but they're not involved in the actual deal. But nationally, the big line is that you deal with your slaughtery, and the slaughteries have become bigger, and they sort of co-own each other, a lot of them. But so yeah, you have to deal with the slaughtery in between. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we've taken maybe enough of your time. It's been really, really interesting. I think it's been a really good choice for a first event.
Thank you. Thanks
so I'd really like to thank you very much.
I hope to be invited to all the other ones now.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll switch the camera off now to say goodbye to our YouTube viewers, and we can have a chat there now. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Wait a minute now. Okay. No.